So Sunday is Camogie final day in Croker. It starts at 12 o'clock with the Premier Junior final, which is Armagh against Antrim. 2 o'clock then is Galway against Cork in the intermediate final. And then the big one, the senior final, is Cork against Kilkenny at 4:15. The game's all live on television as well. So it's a triple header at Croke Park on Sunday. Sarah O'Donovan is with us in studio. Sarah, how are you getting on?
Good.
Kilkenny-Cork. It's safe to say this is a fairly familiar rivalry at this point.
It is, and I can't separate them. They beat each other the last 2 years in semi-finals. They have a massive rivalry. Galway were better than both of them obviously last year, and this year Kilkenny were just, I thought they were excellent in semi-final. Myself and Aisling were both at the game sitting behind each other, and I really thought that Kilkenny, looking at that game, have more to offer than Cork.
Yeah, that was my takeaway as well. For Cork, I'd say they went away from that semi-final probably very disappointed how they performed, especially that first half. I think until Aisling Thompson came off the bench, I think it was 22 minutes gone, she sort of put a bit of shape to the whole thing. The dynamic of the team sort of changed when she stepped on the pitch. So I think they'll come away definitely disappointed, but I think that's not a bad way sometimes to go into an All-Ireland. That was quite low for them. So, you know, they can only go up. They didn't peak in the semi-final, which I always think is important, not to peak when Kilkenny had a super game in the semi-final.
Yeah, look, they actually haven't peaked at all year. They've really struggled, Cork, all year to find their form, to find their team. They've had players coming in and out. You've obviously mentioned Aisling coming back in after 25 minutes. Hannah Looney's come back in late as well. She was in New York, so she missed the whole of the league. They struggled against Dublin. Dublin went 7 points up and they managed to reel Dublin back in. Same with Waterford. Waterford went ahead. Waterford ran out of steam. Like, Waterford were 33 weeks on the clock, playing out of Division 2. Tried their best, but didn't have that quality at the end. You know, it was like 53 minutes when Cork kind of took over. Amy O'Connor got some points. Katrina Mackey started showing up. It's going to be a better final for the fact that Cork and Kilkenny are in it, because they have more, I suppose, experience at that stage, and Waterford just need a little bit more time and a little bit of a break between games as well, because they had just done too much work.
It feels like it's a constant three-horse race in the sport at the moment, but does the Waterford performance in the semi-final give you hope that actually this thing could be broken up, this triumvirate could be broken up in the next couple of seasons? Yeah,
like the group with Cork, Dublin, Waterford, Clare, Tip, like that was a very exciting group, and it took the last games on the last day to decide who actually went through. Tip were fierce unfortunate not to go through, having beaten Cork finally 117 to 116. It could have been any one of those teams that had gone through. So on that side, very, very competitive. So you'd be hoping that they'd get closer. But, you know, looking at Dublin's contribution this year, they trained 100 times and they were nearly 11 points worse off than Kilkenny. You know, like it takes a massive amount of effort. It took Waterford 5 years to break the quarter-final barrier. It's a massive commitment for a group of players to decide to stay that long to try and take on those three horses. Yeah,
I think Waterford will go away from that game probably very disappointed, you know, to be so far up at half time. They looked in control, but as you said, Sarah, it really was just those last maybe 15 minutes or so. And I suppose that comes with experience of being in Croke Park in an All-Ireland semi-final. But I definitely think they're a team that are one to watch for next year. The likes of Beckhart, and I thought she was exceptional from centre half forward. So they have really good players. Even their bench coming on, you know, had an impact as well. But maybe that experience and just lost a bit of steam in the end. But definitely one to watch. I think things are changing. You may see more teams involved, as you said, Tipperary as well. Yeah. Definitely a team that's up and coming.
Well, look, I think Niamh Rockett had been incredible for the whole of the campaign, and then she met Maeve Callahan, and Maeve Callahan had her in her pocket. She won ball, but she couldn't get past Maeve in the semi-final, and they needed Rockett to hit, you know, 2-3 goals. Actually, Roisin Kerwin missed a sitter in the first half for Waterford. She blew it over the bar, but you know, they probably needed just a turn like that just to get them a little clearer. But I thought the Cork defence, while they struggled in the first half in the semi-final, really pushed on in the second half and really got on top.
You mentioned Maeve Callahan there. I think it probably makes sense to get into some of the matchups you've picked out this weekend. So we've picked out 5 of the head-to-heads that you're most looking forward to. So who's Callahan going to mark?
Katie Nolan. I thought Katie Nolan was excellent in the semi-final. I also thought she was excellent against Clare in the group phase as well. Lads, she's so good at stepping into pockets, stepping off her player and getting scores from ridiculous angles. She got an outrageous score against Galway, but she just loves to play off the shoulder, and when you have a forward like that who can make her run late enough for the back not to be able to obviously cover her off, she's definitely worth 3 or 4 points in the game. Maeve, what she did against Niamh Rockett is what she's going to have to do against Katie Nolan if she gets to pick her up. And I think Maeve's well able for that man marking job.
Okay, so that's Carla. You're giving her the edge in that one, I suspect.
I'm giving her the edge, but I wonder, will it be enough? Because then you look at Julianne Malone, Mary O'Connell, they're players I haven't even mentioned in the head-to-heads here. But they're the players, if Katie Nolan's covered off, Cork are going to have to try and cover off those players then as well.
Miriam Walsh, who's going to pick her up?
Miriam Walsh has been ferocious on the square, and I thought she got the better of Sarah Dervin in the semi-final. I thought every time she went toe-to-toe with Sarah Dervin, she was actually getting past her and was more physical than her for the first time in years. She's having to pick up Libby Coppinger. Well, Libby Coppinger going to have to pick up Miriam Walsh. And Libby struggled in the first half for Cork the last day. She wasn't as sharp as I thought she could be, and I think that could be something that Miriam Walsh will actually take advantage of. The question is, will Kilkenny go route one? Will they be direct enough with Miriam early on?
How do they usually play?
Look, they have 6 potent forwards. They can score from every angle, so they're not shy. But because Miriam has the physical and height advantage over Libby, for the first 15 minutes I'd be pummeling that ball in top of Miriam.
Yeah, her hands are glue. Yeah, she's very good under the high ball, but she was quiet in the semi-final, I thought
every time she took Sarah Dervin on, she caused havoc. And it was only actually if she had taken Sarah Dervin on another step. Sarah
maybe quiet by her standards, because she has been ripping it up the whole season. Yeah. But a little bit quieter, which again might peak come the final,
Well, look, Sarah Dervin is a phenomenal talent and she's a phenomenal fullback, but I probably thought there was a bit of naivety on Miriam's part in that she could have actually taken past her, and for Sarah to have to drag her back, get an early yellow, put her under pressure. That's probably the only thing that I would have said Miriam could have done better in the semi-final.
Okay. On the flip side of things then, Amy O'Connor is obviously going to be somebody that they're going to have to keep a close eye on from a Kilkenny perspective. So how do you see that one going?
Look, there's a number of players who could pick her up, but Grace Walsh is in at full back, you've Claire Phelan at centre back, you've Stephanie Fitzgerald, Michelle Tehan. There's loads of options there to pick her up. From Kilkenny's point of view, the last day, what I liked about them was Galway were so direct that Kilkenny actually had to foul them to stop them from getting towards goal. But they were all willing to pick up their yellow card, and then the next player would step up and she'd take the free and she'd take the foul. Camogie players can be a bit naive sometimes and they're a bit shy to do that kind of work, but Kilkenny aren't.
Kilkenny are cynical.
So cynical, and I love it. It's brilliant. But from Amy O'Connor's point of view, she's not going to enjoy her time inside in that Kilkenny full back line. I think they're going to give her a tired time. Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if Grace Walsh could come out on her either. I thought she was phenomenal. She's a phenomenal player. The way she reads the game.
Yes.
Like, even if she's not fully involved, she's reading the game. She might even just get an interception, but she knows when to go and when to hold. So I wouldn't be surprised either if she might come out on Amy, for sure.
Yeah, well, look, Niamh Hannafy was so direct the last day. Aoife Donoghue was so direct. Niamh Kilkenny, early on, that first 20 minutes for Galway, they were just running at Kilkenny. And the girls were just coming out going, right, I'll take the foul, you take the foul, I'll take the foul. It's brilliant to watch. It's, I suppose it is very cynical, but that's the way you have to win those games like that.
The next thing we want to look at is the midfield battle. So obviously Aisling Thompson starts this game. No question over that, right?
No question. And look, herself and Hannah, because of I suppose the number of factors which you mentioned, Hannah being away, Aisling obviously the ban. Now she didn't actually end up missing any games ultimately, but still there was a 2-week period there where she thought she wasn't going to be playing in the semi-final. So it had to mean that Cork obviously had to look at different options. I think they've probably been much more settled for the last 2 weeks. I thought that was the one area where Kilkenny struggled in the semi-final, and they ended up having to bring Denise Gall back into midfield and push Katie Power up into the forwards to try and get kind of a bit of stability in midfield against Galway. So I think that's the one area where Cork can actually punish Kilkenny, because Aisling and Hannah are so good there. I'd like to see Hannah go a little, I suppose, little more direct and take more shots on. I thought against Waterford she went to the 45 and Hannah of old would have popped the ball over the bar, but she just hesitated and she looked for Katrina and she looked for a runner. So definitely I think another 2 weeks of hurling and she'll be going right, straight between the posts.
Okay, so who do you give the edge to in that battle?
I'm giving it to Cork.
Okay, I think we've got our quick picks coming up a little bit later on. I may or may not have picked Kilkenny. I'm starting to feel less confident as these battles go on. And the final one is Denise Gall and who's going to mark her. Like, the context here obviously is what you just spoke about there, that Gall may not actually be that close to goal if things aren't going their way.
She was everywhere but her, half-forward position for Kilkenny 2 weeks ago. I would say Laura Hayes will pick her up, right? Now, Laura Hayes loves coming forward, very dynamic forward, and Gall hasn't scored from play in the last 2 games, which is very un-Gall-like. Now, she hit 111 for Kilkenny against Dublin from placed balls. But the last day, she played all of her hurling in the half-back line into midfield because that's where they needed her. So, I think obviously she's a massive threat from wing forward, but can they afford to keep her there if they don't have their midfield motoring?
Okay, so, and how do you see that playing out then? Say if she does play close enough to goal.
Oh, she could hit 10 points.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's her territory, yeah.
The drought is actually something you would look at and say that's a reason why she could perform this weekend as to a trend.
Yeah, Dublin decided to go man for man on her. Actually, I'm managing Niamh Marnogues out in Portmarnock, and Ciara Buchanan, who's one of my crew, was marking Denise, and it was her debut, thrown in for Dublin in a quarter final to mark Denise, and kept her scoreless.
Wow.
Now had a torrid hour running around after her, but managed to keep her scoreless. And I suppose, is that something that Cork would look at, is putting somebody on her to shut her down for the hour and keep her to place balls. But the problem there is Julianne Malone scores 4 points in semi-final. Mary O'Connell scores. You've got Katie Power, some great scores, and then Laura Murphy pops up for Kilkenny with 1-1 from wing back. So whichever door you're shutting, there's another door to open for Kilkenny, and I think they're just really well organised this year.
Like you talked there a moment ago about Kilkenny's street smarts and their ability to foul when it needs to, when it's required. Because I think what we had attached this Kilkenny team with for so long was the inability to get over the line, the lack of a winning instinct in a final anyway, and obviously that changes in 2020. Is there still any hangover at all from all those final defeats, or did 2020 banish all those ghosts?
I don't think there's any hangover.
Okay.
That's that Cork.
It's a different team anyway.
Well, it's that Cork, Galway, Kilkenny trio. Like, you are guaranteed popcorn and entertainment if you watch any one of those pairings play. And you're talking millimetres, centimetres, like blocks, hooks. They're the differences in those games. And it's just 3 incredible teams who play really well against each other, and some team inevitably comes out on top. I think the mentality piece where we can't win a final is gone now, because between them they've won since 2018 All-Ireland's league finals, and they've just been literally swapping over. You'll have it, I'll have it. They obviously don't want to give it to each other, but that's how close it's been, and they've all won. They all have a sack of medals in their pocket.
I think as well, the management, like Brian Dowling, the passion on the sideline from him at the semi-final was something else. I thought it was brilliant to see, and then I spoke to him after, and you could really feel that from him, and he was talking about the girls in the dressing room and what it means to them, and I think that that feeds into a team, that atmosphere, that buzz. So that's what I'm feeling from them. So I think, he's probably going to instill a hell of a lot in them for an All-Ireland final, not to let it pass them as well. So I think that side of things. But look, yeah, you do have Davy Fitz and Matthew on the other hand, in the other dressing room, that are brilliant as well. But I think it's fascinating watching the 2 managements on the sideline this year as well. Yeah,
Davy's been ruthless, if we're being honest. You know what I mean? I suppose he hasn't gone with the idea that if you're training all year you should be playing, it's foreign players are in, and he's had to make some tough calls. Matthew's had to make some tough calls. There was players around the Cork setup from, say, November, December, and then you had better hurlers coming back in and becoming available, and they were out and
Why was that? Was it just because they were off after a long campaign last year, or why did they come in later?
Yeah, speaking about Hannah was obviously in New York, but there's been, I suppose, different players that they've brought in on form. Sarah Carton's come in from Down. She's actually working in Cork. Yeah. I think she's working for a company in Carrigtwohill. I anticipate she'll play full forward on Sunday.
What a get for them!
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, and look, it's that non-traditional element. It's she's available to us. She's coming in. We're looking for a scoring threat. There's no shyness about the lads making these big decisions. And there's players around that Cork team for years who would have probably said, surely it's my turn now. And the lads are like, no.
It's a bit of a high wire act, is it? It obviously seems to have paid off, and especially if they win on Sunday, but there is kind of that balance between team morale and the rest of it, isn't there? I know you have to be ruthless and play the best hurler, but if there was players who've been there all season long or all throughout pre-season, and they're not that they're not going to get fair crack at a whip, but you might put a nose out of joint here or there by approaching it in that manner. But I don't think Davy Fitz has ever been afraid of that.
No, it hasn't. And look, David Herity before him, like I was under David Herity in 2017, and Dave again was another guy not afraid to make calls based on looking at players and looking at their skill set and deciding if they were able for it. Didn't care if you were training for 20 weeks or 3. If you were good enough, you were in.
Right.
And at that level, at that senior level, I think everything else goes out the window.
Yeah, it's just ruthless.
It's ruthless.
I think it has to be that way too.
Yeah.
But it is tough for the girls that are on the sideline looking in, maybe not even making, the match day panel. Like, that's very, very tough. But yeah, I think in inter-county it's absolutely ruthless.
Well, look, if you look at the Cork teams over the years and the dual teams, the dual players that would have been with Cork when Cork were winning the ladies' football, and the Camogie, and you the likes of Rena Buckley and Breach Corkery and Angela Walsh, and these were players who were probably doing one session a week with the Camogie, one session with the football, and one at the weekend. It physically wasn't possible for those girls to train, on consecutive days. So. But yet they were the best players, and everybody wanted the best players on the pitch, and you just have to suck it up, lads.
That's absolutely fair enough. One other thing I wanted to ask you about is Claire Phelan was speaking this week about, I guess Brian Cody's just been such a talking point for everybody who's picked up a hurl. Everybody's getting asked about it, so the Kilkenny Camogie team were naturally asked about it, and she said just during that era of the 2000s, seeing Kilkenny in an All-Ireland every year, just all the boys and girls just got associated with the idea of winning. They just thought every single year winning. Is that something that actually has a significant impact on the culture that we're seeing now from Kilkenny, do you think, or is that a little bit of a leap?
No, I think the players who come into play for Kilkenny have a brilliant spirit, and their work ethic, the standard that they, like their foundation standard compared to other inter-county teams that I've come across, is poles apart. Their expectation, their commitment level, it all stems from, I suppose, that conversation that has been, I'd say, constantly in Kilkenny houses over the years, where it's like, did you see how hard he worked? Did you see, what he gave to the team? And the expectation is, if you wear a Kilkenny jersey, or certainly it seems to me, is unless you give that level of commitment and that level of work ethic, you'll never be the hurler that X was or Y was. And, from a Camogie point of view, the likes of Anne Dalton, the Downies, there's a myriad of Kilkenny Camogie players who were exceptional, and Claire has all of those to look up to as well, but Anne would be my favourite always and ever.
Who's going to win?
On Sunday.
Yeah.
Based on the semi-final, I couldn't look past Kilkenny, but this Cork team haven't found form yet this year, and could potentially, for the fact that they robbed Kilkenny in 2018, last gasp score. This was the only difference this year, is the quality from the Cork setup, like trying to replace Gemma O'Connor, Orla Cotter, Julia White, Orla Cronin. These are all players that have gone away since, Pamela Mackey, all players that have gone away since 2018. My heart says Cork, but my head, based on what we saw last 2 weeks ago, I think Kilkenny have more work done, and they're better organised.
I think they're favourites as well, just about going into Sunday. Just one comment coming in here from Conor Delaney. Sarah, why is the black card not in Camogie? Some of the fouling in the semi-final warranted black cards.
It's something that they'll probably have to look at. I think the yellow card is the most, I suppose the yellow card is something that they've kind of organised now, and they've brought in that physicality to Camogie and allowed a bit of physicality. So the referees are still trying to find that balance between allowing that shoulder or allowing that kind of, say, that extra bit of physicality when you're coming in to tackle. The black card, they've just avoided it, lads. It's something that we haven't seen yet. The sin bin is obviously into ladies football, and it allows that cynical late foul, but no, we've avoided it. I
think it's brilliant the way there's a bit more physicality in Camogie. I think it's something that the ladies football, just when we're mentioning it, is crying out for, because the yellow card in ladies football can kill the game at times.
Yes.
So I'm delighted they don't that it's not in Camogie, because it does allow that more physicality, and you need that in Camogie. Yeah. You really do. You're going in for a tackle, there's going to be contact, so you need to be able to be that bit more physical. So yeah, hopefully you see it in the ladies' game too.
Yeah, we're glad the black card isn't in, evidently.
Yeah.
That commentator's obviously talking about Kilkenny in the semi-final, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Galway will feel aggrieved. They've made 3 runs at goal in the first half that were odds on goals, but for Michelle Teahan having to literally ransack her player. She literally rugby tackled her to the ground. And I think there was another one late on as well in the second half that Kilkenny just had to get it done and make sure they didn't get to goal. Yeah. And until that's taken out of the game, then that's
a bit of the street smarts again.
Yeah, that you're just going to have to train your team to do that.
Yeah,
you've six backs who could potentially foul 6 times and still stay on the field.
Yeah, that's what's going to happen on Sunday, and that's why I think Kilkenny are going to win. Very quick word before we let you go. Derek Lyng may not have been the most high-profile name that was in the hat when it came to the public conversations around Kilkenny, but they've acted quickly and he's in there. Do you know much about Derek Lyng? Is there a situation here where we could see Brian Cody 2.0, given he has worked under him?
It's an interesting one because I suppose from the kind of public perception, it was the options included Henry Shefflin, Eddie Brennan, DJ Carey, all people who've been involved in management in the last couple of years, but Kilkenny are quite conservative, and they've gone with somebody who knows the players, who's obviously involved with the under-20 setup and had success there, and is now coming into the senior setup with a group of players from, say, minors and 20s and 21s who trust him. So I think it's a very good appointment. Yeah, and I think also the speed at which they've acted as well probably helps, with club action obviously getting up and running everywhere at the moment. Sarah, enjoy the weekend. I think you two were on analysis and live reports on Sunday as well, so enjoy that. We'll chat to you then. We'll hear from Sarah as well throughout the show on Sunday afternoon.